Are you there, Jess? Are you ready to roll?
I am. I'm here. Hello.
It's high grade. So I spent last year's International Women's Day with Jess in person. We hosted an event in Cambridge. I know the lovely Jess through our mutual friend Jo Lawrence, who some of you listening might know from Women Ed. And Jess is doing phenomenal work as a non-educator. And I think it's always really important for us as educators, Jess, to hear what's happening in other sectors as well. So I'm going to shut up, leave you to it, do your 10 minutes, and I'll come back and ask you some questions once you're done.
Amazing. Sounds good. Right, let me get my right window to share with you. All right, everyone can see. So thank you, Hannah, for inviting me to be here today. It's a real pleasure and honour. I love International Women's Day, but every day feels like International Women's Day for me. Just a little quick one before we start, in case it hasn't already been covered. Gender is, of course, a spectrum, or as some would say, a galaxy. So just a little heads up that I'm going to use the word woman, but it will be very inclusive of non-binary and trans individuals and anyone who was born as female. So I'm going to use woman as a shorthand, much like the UN. And if you're neurodivergent while you're watching this and you need to move, or you need your captions on for auditory processing, then please do that. And if there's any chat, you can turn it off. And just, acknowledging that there's always a varied amount of experience in the room when I talk about all sorts of unspoken challenges, which is my thing. So my name is Jess Rad. I'm the founder of the WomenHood. I'm a gender equity and neurodiversity advocate and speaker. I'm ex-Disney, BBC and Fox, but now I go out and talk about the unspoken challenges. I'm also a facilitator and mentor for social entrepreneurs and an ambassador for Amaze, which is a brilliant SEND charity down here in Sussex, where I'm based, a proud parent carer of two, amongst many other things. So the WomenHood, just quickly, it supports organisations and communities to close their gender gaps by mainstreaming the unspoken challenges of womanhood. So we deliver talks and workshops and programmes about increasing self-awareness and compassion within women and females, and indeed allyship, and making change feel really accessible through micro 1% actions. I talk a lot about whole variety, which maybe that's my ADHD brain, but we cover issues from women's health, neurodiversity, money and relationships, and look at all the intersections and connections between the two of them, which is where it gets really juicy. And always try to do so with an intersectional lens, so recognizing that gender fluidity and sexuality and race and ethnicity will always play a role in it, and always trying to shine a light on those who might feel most marginalized when you kind of have a combination of those going on. So I talk a lot about the unspoken, and I had some slides prepared for today, and then I was reading the International Women's Day messages this morning, and being really brutally honest, I sat in my kitchen about an hour ago and burst into tears. And my son, who's 8, came in and gave me a hug, told me to do some deep breaths and asked what was wrong. And I said, I think I feel a bit tired because this is how I wish everybody talked every day of the year, 365 days of the year, not just on this one day. And obviously there's many of us probably in this room and presenting and listening today that this will be part of our lives. But I think this idea of how can we like mainstream a lot of these conversations and make them a daily occurrence is what really drives me. So thinking about how do we really accelerate action? I'll tell you a quick story about how it came to be that I'm here today. So about 5 years ago, I had quit my job with nothing to go to. My period went from a 26-day cycle to 45 days, and it was the wake-up call I needed to realise that I wasn't on the path that I should be. And then I'm a kind of accidental community creator. I accidentally created a community of about 350 women where I live, and as that group grew, it was becoming clear to me that the loneliness epidemic of what we're going through was preventing us from really talking about the things that were actually having an impact on our daily quality of life and often our long-term health. So I ended up somehow bringing together a group of 7 women, and the WomenHood and the Unspoken sessions were born. Over the last few years, I've seemed to kind of collect a lot of my own unspoken challenges. So I kind of found out I was going through premature menopause at 38, discovered I was getting divorced in lockdown. I spent a lot of time advocating for my daughter, who you see in the middle there. I feel like that picture really encapsulates my love for her. Got her an EHCP and taken her out of mainstream. I've been through almost a tribunal, done a lot of advocating for many years, navigating the healthcare and education systems. And my mum got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. There was a lot of things. Recognised my own neurodivergence, and as Glennon Doyle will say, one woman's story is often a million women's stories. And I realised there was huge power in sharing these experiences, but also it just gave me a much deeper understanding of the complexities of what it means to be a woman and the often hidden and unspoken barriers to us fulfilling on our own ambitions and dreams at work. That kind of culminated to some degree in October last year when I got awarded the Positive Role Model for Gender Award at the National Diversity Awards out of 90,000, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. And it's really cemented my desire to not just expand my work, but I guess extend it into allyship and in making sure that all genders feel really seen and heard in these conversations. I do feel like we're living through exciting times. We've now realised that menopause is something that happens. It's been happening since the beginning of time, and the last 4 years meant that everybody else is kind of waking up to it. But I guess I really see this as like the Trojan horse, because whilst menopause has a profound impact on our daily experience of life, that's like the tip of the iceberg, and it feels like there's a few things that businesses and organizations and leaders are kind of aware of, but actually there's a huge volume of things that are happening behind closed doors, in secret, that are having a big impact. So coming back to this question of how do we accelerate action? Well, I'm going to give you 3 ideas to contemplate today. One is that we stop the shame and the fear of judgment that is making us suffer with these things behind closed doors and hidden away, and that we all get outspoken about the unspoken. These things, I could sit here and give you an hour's worth of stats, which I don't have time for, but so many of them are impacting many of us. And actually, it's when we come out and share them that we realise they have the ability to really unite us. Secondly, we have to create safe and brave spaces so that individuals, women in particular, given the long-term systemic gender gaps, to increase our self-awareness, which in turn increases our self-compassion and subsequently enables us to better self-advocate. And by that, I mean, it could be our hormones. You could realize that actually you're suffering with endometriosis, or maybe you are neurodivergent, or maybe you are in a unhappy coercive relationship, or maybe you are in a lot of debt that you need to find your way out of. There's lots of things happening in women's lives that we don't even give time and space to so that we can make change, but we have to enable that self-advocacy piece. And crucially, we have to make allyship and change feel accessible. I've started now last year creating programs where I create spaces, perhaps counterintuitively, just for men to learn about these unspoken challenges of womanhood, menopause being a prime example. And when you create the right container to enable the ability to share that kind of ignorance and ask those questions and really step into the shoes of these experiences, then I think that's when we can really make change happen. And the Womanhood is all about making 1% changes so it feels accessible. My journey is that, as I say, that I have learned now that I can actually use my voice to do this, and I have been doing so for some time. I've been in the Guardian and the iPaper and all sorts talking about it, and a big part of that has been the unmasking. So I've realised a couple of years ago that I am neurodivergent, and of course there's a huge influx of women going through the same experience now, and for me this is critical to us having a much better quality of life and being able to understand ourselves. And that is what I've now been bringing into businesses for a couple of years now. I know I'm where I'm going to run out of time, so I'll flip through. But yes, I believe that there are so many unspoken challenges holding women back, and if we can only bring ourselves together, we can overcome some of those. I'm really proud that the Womenhood has got 100% excellent Net Promoter Score. So every session that I've ever delivered, people would recommend to a colleague or friend. And one that I did just last week was called Mind Blowing, which is really lovely. A big focus for me is neurodiversity at the moment, particularly autism and ADHD, and women and girls and females and non-binary and trans. So if you are interested in that, I'm actually bringing back community events. They're going to be hybrid events starting next month, open to all genders, so that everybody, including leaders and teams and managers, can better understand it in a really shame-free, judgment-free space. Yeah, if you'd like to know more, then this is me. You can scan that code and there's lots of options to connect with me.
Jess, thank you so much. And it has just been wonderful to witness the journey you have been on. Like when I saw that you won at the awards, I was like, oh my God, I was so proud. Like someone I knew was winning that award. And it must have been such an overwhelming moment to win. Just tell us about that experience.
Oh, yeah, I actually did a post on this the other day because I think one of the most amazing things is the process that you go through, because it's not just the quantity of votes you get, it's the quality. So you have to ask people, if you can take a minute just and send something nice about me. And reading those, it was like an obituary. And Paul, who created Inclusive Companies, that's what he wanted for people, was that if you're doing great work, I should nominate you, Hannah, in the world, for you actually get to hear the impact that you've had on people's lives, and that was really extraordinary. Nominations are opening, I should say. I'm doing a webinar next week about it, I think. So
I have been nominated a few times and I've not got to the finals yet. So clearly you're doing something different and special. And I think you're so willing to be so vulnerable and authentic about your own experience. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about you going through your own diagnosis, because I know when we talked last, you were advocating for your children and their needs. And it's not often the parent is driving the EHCP process. It's normally the school. So that was a learning journey for you. But is that how you then discovered perhaps your own shift in identity at the same time?
Yes, totally. Yeah. Suddenly you just some of these things start to ring true for you, and it makes you look at yourself. It's a big journey, and I do actually do kind of trigger warnings when I talk about it, because you do tip into that grief cycle when you get late identified later on in life. But I think it is the most wonderful, extraordinary journey of self-discovery, and I highly recommend it for everyone.
And you're right, like there's the whole hashtag Autie at 40, isn't it? Autie at 40.
Oh, I haven't seen that. That's amazing.
Look at it on socials. So many women hit their 40s and realise, and the menopause almost takes that mask down about our own identities. And also, there's loads of data around the menopause and divorce. So the fact that
menopause and divorce,
menopause and divorce. Like, how has where are you now with that kind of process? Because that's massive as well, isn't it? And that's also a grief cycle.
Yes, it is. The talk that I do on menopause is reframing it as a gift, because estrogen is our caregiving hormone. So you look at it across the span of a woman's life, it's actually highest in your fertile period if you are able to have children, and then it fluctuates and declines in perimenopause. So it gives you, excuse my language, an amazing FU energy about you to go, I'm actually going to put my own needs first. And that's partly why these divorces and all sorts of things will come about. Quit your job, change your life, and it's great. I say harness it.
I love that. And I'm just going to wrap up by repeating what you said in the opening, that for you, International Women's Day is 365. I feel like that, Jess. Like when I started WomenHood, it was my hobby, it was my evenings, it was my weekends. I feel really privileged to do my work full time and to live and breathe what I really believe in. It just really resonated with me when you said that. Do you get the question, what about International Men's Day as well, or not?
Yes, and I think it's important. We need to have all the days, but let's just mainstream and normalize the chat, and let's let everybody involved in gender equity, because it won't work if just a few of us are doing it.
Completely agree. Well, thank you for squidging us into your schedule. I know you're juggling motherhood and domestic bliss this weekend as well. So thank you so much. It's great to see you, hear about the work you're doing, and I will make sure I share everything with the listeners. But go and crack on with your sunny Saturday, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Take care now.